Hello and welcome to Expat Lifestyle with Bads. This episode I'm going to explore with you and hopefully provide some helpful advice to you regarding the prospects of becoming an international teacher, an expat. As always, thumbs up, subscribe, bell notifications on. The what, the how, the why. The what? You're going to do what? So my wife and I, we resigned from our positions in Australia a few years ago now. A lot of people said, what are you doing that for? It's so risky, you're giving up so much. The how do we go about it? There's so many things to do and you need to plan ahead. You need to be really organised. Start your planning early. And the why? It's probably the easy one to answer. So I guess it was an opportune time for my wife and I to explore the possibility of the expat lifestyle and teaching overseas at an international school. Look, our children all said, go for it. You know, no regrets. And that's sort of what we felt too. We didn't want to be looking back in 10 years' time and thinking, why didn't we explore this possibility? And so we did. And now 6 years later, we've just had 5 years in China and we're nearly finishing our first year here in Europe, in Italy. New challenges, an opportunity to travel, obviously, and also hopefully for our adult children to also experience travel because they would come and visit us, wouldn't they? So all of our children had finished their schooling. One was certainly settled and working in Melbourne. One was about to venture overseas herself, and our youngest, he'd finished school and had obtained an apprenticeship. So one of our children came over to China, the only one of the three, mind you, but she wanted to see the pandas, so that gave us a really good excuse to go to Chengdu, check it out here. The panda breeding facility or zoo in Chengdu. Yes, if you're in China, it's a must visit. I love these guys, have a look at them. They're so chilled. In a new school, new environment, new country, you've got an opportunity to get involved in some activities that maybe you hadn't thought of previously. As you can see here, I tried joining a choir. Dance lessons. It was great doing a triathlon in Beijing.
1391 Bruce，第一名获得者11391号 Bruce，祝贺他们。
So coming from Australia where the weather isn't conducive to a lot of snowmaking, I must admit I did enjoy the cold weather of Beijing. It's typically a drier winter, but very, very cold. And that's quite, I enjoyed that. Hey guys, how are we going there? Walking home. Great, it's at -9. So just a nice balmy walk home. Okay, see you later. Yeah, so here I am about to go into the fruit market. It's a bit hard to talk, so bloody cold. Every time I take my gloves off, my fingers are freezing. But yeah, it's full of activity in here in the park. There's people running. What about this? The old shopping trolley. Great Nana would be proud. Okay, I'm about to get some fruit and veg. See you soon. Good morning, good morning. Fair bit of snow recently. Not too many people out. Cyclists. Looks familiar. Just quietly, she's struggling on the bike. I've been waiting for ages. Here she goes. Okay, good morning guys. Slept in the hat last night. It's pretty cold, as I said. Have a look at this drinking bottle. Frozen solid. It was pretty cold in here. And yes, we even bought an EV, one of the earlier models. I call it the red Ferrari. Have a look at this. Guess what? The beast. It's still going. It's still going strong. 5 years in, Nelly. So moving from the why, the what. You're going to do what? Resign We actually sold a larger house, bought a smaller apartment for our children that were in Melbourne. So how does one become an expat? How does one secure a job internationally? So step one, start organising your documentation now, because you need all of that in place to secure your working visa. Step two, you need a job. No job, no working visa. The working visa will only be issued to you once you have secured a job overseas. And then things happen quickly. And if you haven't got your documentation in place, it becomes very, very stressful. And you might find yourself running out of time. Start the gathering and authenticating of your documents now, at least a year out. That time goes quickly. Remember, once they're notarised and authenticated, you then have to take them to the closest consulate. So for us, after having secured a job in China, fortunately in Melbourne there's a Chinese embassy where we were able to take our authenticated documents to the embassy there so that they could verify them, and finally, after quite a few hurdles and jumping through hoops, they were able to approve our working visa. So you need to be organised. Start collecting all of your relevant documents, start getting them notarised and authenticated well before you plan to go. So we're talking about high school transcripts, your degree transcripts, teaching certification, masters, any other studies that are relevant. Now, when we moved from Beijing to Florence, the Italian government also required our marriage certificate. So there's lots of things to ensure that you have in place and ready to go. So whilst you're gathering all of that material and getting that authenticated and notarised, you need to obviously secure a job, don't you? Now, we went through Search Associates. There are several other teaching search associations around. So I guess you do your homework there and find out what's closest to you. Contacting schools individually, you can do that as well, but you can't be guaranteed that your email will be passed on to the relevant people. So do your research, find out which job fair is close to you, and then enrol in that and look at what jobs are available in your particular field. Schools that are attending, that's when you could contact them too and let them know that you're going to be there and you'd love an opportunity to talk with the relevant people when they arrive at the job fair from that school. And look, whilst you're just researching what schools are going to be at the job fair, have a look at the school as well in terms of what sort of governance. Is it a privately owned for-profit school or non-for-profit? Is it a part of a big global organisation? Because these things do have an impact on the type of school environment you're going to go into. A word of caution, just be wary of some of the online reviews that are out there, because just keep in mind, these reviews are anonymous. And as we know, anonymous social media platforms, there are biases. I do know that for a fact. So just be aware. Better to try and contact someone still at the school, if that can be managed, to get a greater idea of what the whole school environment is like. So just keep in mind, the school is obviously looking to employ someone who is a good fit for their school, their environment, their school community. But please also think about, is a school a good fit for you and or your family? As with any job, you have to sell yourself, don't you? And make sure your CV is professional. You need to sell yourself. What can you offer the school? So do your preparation, do your research, be diligent there, prepare your CV, do some upskilling yourself, and good luck at the job fair. Then what happens when you get a job offer? That's when the fun and games, stress can really start. And if the job offer comes through, look, the HR department in the school that's offered you a position are normally very, very good at guiding you through the process, and that's important. You follow their process step by step. Don't take any shortcuts because you'll be caught out and it can delay things dramatically. But be prepared for lots of curveballs and be prepared for a lengthy process to secure that visa. And that's why if you have most of your documentation notarised and authorised already, it can save you a lot of time and a lot of stress. So once that process is in place and rolling along, you can then start exploring and enjoying the fact that you are going to a new country and start exploring and finding out a little bit about the food, the language, the values, the culture, because that's what this experience is all about, isn't it? Now, for those with a family that are going with you, there's other layers to unravel there, and my wife and I were obviously on our own, so it is a lot easier, and we're older, so we've got a lot of, I guess, a few more life experiences, because moving away from home can be quite stressful. Moving away from home with your children can magnify the stress because they have to be settled into. So if you have secured a job, congratulations. Now, I'm not a financial advisor, but you can do quite well depending on where you go. Europe is very hard to get into, and most European schools don't offer assistance regarding accommodation. However, Asian countries, so China, Vietnam, Thailand, Malaysia, and so on, normally accommodation is a part of the deal. So that gives you an opportunity, doesn't it, to travel and also to save. Is your school going to offer return flights each year? So these are things that you need to work out. The banking, how is that going to work? It's in China, it's not easy to send money home. It takes a bit of time. Whereas in most other countries, it's a lot easier. You can just send it via a Wise card, for instance. Things to think about, things to explore. So is accommodation part of the package? Most international schools will have 0 fees if your children are accompanying you. Lower taxes. These are all, or what are the tax conditions? For Australia, there's a tax treaty with most countries, so if I pay tax in one country, I don't have to double dip back in Australia. So these are all things you need to also start doing as you're waiting for that visa process to be completed. So there is a lot to consider. But what an opportunity to travel and be immersed into a new culture, possibly quite a different culture and lifestyle that you're used to. And regarding that, we all have our own ways of doing things, but we have to remember that we're going to a new country and they may do things differently to what we're used to, and we need to be mindful of this. We need to be adaptable to this, and we need to be respectful of the country we go to and how they go about doing things. Look, many schools require a potential hire to have several years of teaching experience, and I would certainly suggest that too, that you should be in the classroom on the coalface, learning the craft a bit before venturing into the international sphere. You just want that classroom experience, I believe, and that would allow you to be successful in a position overseas. Ideally, you could teach in 2 subject areas. That provides flexibility, doesn't it? And that's what schools are looking for. You want to be involved in all aspects of the school community and school life. Several years of teaching in your home country allows you to develop your own, your teaching philosophy, establish your teaching values, and in that way, and get some experience of handling different scenarios in the classroom. Whether it's from different pedagogical methods of teaching a particular topic, classroom behaviour management. You need a few years to develop that, and this will allow you then to be far more comfortable and confident in a new country where you don't know anyone. But one of the joys is also forming new friendships with colleagues from all around the world. It can also confirm or affirm with you that what you do is pretty good. And by that, I mean, if you know you have an impact, that you can engage the students in your classroom in wherever you are currently, you'll be successful overseas too. After many years teaching in Australia and then 5 years in China and now having nearly completed a year in Italy, what I can tell you regarding students, kids are kids, regardless of their nationality. Many will experience difficulties, they have their worries. Doesn't matter which country they're from. They're all similar in that respect. Tied to their phones, the iGeneration. That's quite typical, isn't it? With your social. But as an experienced educator, you're obviously going to know the content and you're obviously going to have good pedagogical knowledge. But please reflect. Importantly, you want to be able to foster relationships, create rapport, and connect with your students. Some we know don't find that easy at all, but I can tell you, if you can do that, you can get along anywhere and you will soon connect with your students, and it makes things much, much easier. Importantly, to help in your process in establishing yourself at a new school, I would hope that you do show care and value and respect toward your students. And I always remember that confidence, it's so hard to build, but so easy to destroy. And I've seen some poor practitioners really undermine or compromise our young students. So how are you regarding those sorts of important competencies? Hey, there's plenty of courses to do also, aren't there, in the wellbeing sphere, the social emotional learning sphere. It's a big area of international education now. The International Baccalaureate have really seen the need to improve the extent of wellbeing that's being offered in all international schools. So that's what I mean. If you can develop these skills and get that experience before venturing internationally, it'll stand you in really good stead and ensure that you have a successful time away. So enjoy the challenges that will be confronting you, the process of obtaining that working visa. It's not easy. And look, we had to obtain our Italian working visa while still in Beijing, but having to consult with the Italian embassy in Melbourne during COVID. So we had our daughter negotiating all of that too. So that was quite stressful. So every country has its challenges in terms of what you need to do. So listen to your HR, follow what they say to the letter. And if you've got your documents already organised in terms of notarised and being authenticated, that will stand you in good stead. Having secured your job, congratulations, and you can start exploring the new culture that you'll soon be living in. I know when we arrived in China, there was so much for us to take in and adjust to, and some adjustments take time, some adjustments cause a bit of stress, but that's all a part of the learning experience too. Finally, COVID. It was tough globally, wasn't it? We actually watched our son from Beijing on the Australian national news at his apartment building, which was one of the first buildings in Melbourne to be locked down.
Well, it's only day 2 of a 14-day lockdown for the residents at the...
It's been really slow this past 8 days so far.
China was particularly difficult. I think early on in 2022, we were tested about 70 times daily. Strict quarantine, lockdowns. Whilst that was happening, we'd secured our jobs in Italy and we were trying to navigate the visa process from Beijing through 3 consulates: the Beijing Italian consulate, the Melbourne Italian consulate, and the consulate in Rome. So we can get that done. I'm sure you can get your visa done too. Stick at it. Whilst that was going on, there were hardly any flights out of Beijing, so we were trying to secure something there too. It was all happening right up until the last week. 5 days before our flight, we got news that it was cancelled, so we were scrambling, and in the end we did get out via 50 hours, 2 overnight stays in Bangkok and Frankfurt. Okay, good morning everyone. We're at a hotel room in Bangkok. Let's just see if anyone's home. I heard you've got some very breakfast today. The views are outstanding.
Yes, this is the music just outside.
Right, yes. We're at the airport. People going along the that walking elevator thing. What are they called? Anyway, they can look up and we can wave to them. Oh, anyway. Yeah, stopover last night. Thank God we were able to get this room in the airport. We're out of China, by the way. And it's these different experiences that make expat teaching so wonderful, because you are going to experience things you would never have experienced previously. Expat Lifestyle with Bads. Thumbs up, subscribe, bell notifications on. See you next episode. Ciao.